We have people dying every day to deliver those goods because they are in a hurry. There are SLAs to be met. Roads are not efficient. Roads are not easily improved. So we need to think of another dimension. We need to think of the air, how we can use it safely, right? Safely. Let's do what we can do. Let's be pragmatic.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 398. How is drone delivery progressing in other countries? For that question, we head to Brazil to speak with Manoel Coelho, CEO of Speedbird Aero. Speedbird Aero is a leader in the development of intelligent uncrewed aircraft systems. The company's advanced drone hardware and software solutions are designed to address a range of logistic challenges, from package delivery to emergency response. Their mission is to enable safer, faster, and more efficient logistic operations using autonomous drone technology. By unlocking the potential of the sky for commercial, industrial, and healthcare use cases, the company is positively impacting businesses and people's lives around the world. Manoel is an entrepreneur and business leader with more than 20 years of successful and progressive experience in leading sales and marketing teams with a proven ability to implement innovative business solutions that effectively enhance organizational productivity and profitability. He excels in developing business cases that showcase value propositions and influence leadership decisions and strategic direction. He has led Speedbird Aero as CEO for the past 5 years. In this episode of the Drone Radio Show, Manoel talks about Speedbird Aero, the company's drone delivery operations and logistics, and how the company is making a positive impact. But before we hear from Manoel, I want to thank those of you who have been supporting my funding campaign. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. Go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And by the way, if you have a great story on the use of drones that you'd like to share on a podcast, contact me at randy@droneradioshow.com. So let's learn about Brazil's leading drone logistics company with Manoel Coelho of Speedbird Aero. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Manoel to introduce himself.
My name is Manoel Coelho. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Speedbird Aero.
Manoel, tell us about Speedbird Aero. What does the company do?
We are the manufacturers and operators of drones for delivery, for logistics purposes. So uncrewed aircraft for the use in deliveries, in logistics operations.
So Speedbird Aero manufactures the drones as well as providing the service.
The plan was always to be a service provider, to be, providing services in urban areas, remote areas, taking medicines, food, etc. But for many years, we could not actually get the right technology in our hands using third-party drones. Even to certify these drones, it was very difficult. And any changes that we could not control could actually compromise the whole process of certification. So we had only one option, which was to control the technology, control the hardware, control the software, and obviously use this to obtain the certifications that would allow us to operate delivery drones beyond visual line of sight.
Where do you operate?
Today, primarily in Brazil. We started in Brazil because Brazil is a very vibrant airspace industry. They have the third largest aircraft manufacturer in the world. The cluster for engineers, aviators, all the certifications are very aligned with Europe and the US. So we decided to start in Brazil. So most of our operations today are in Brazil. We have actually ongoing daily commercial drone delivery operations, which is rare. in the world. So we actually were able to do here incredible distances inside urban areas, like 17 kilometers, delivering blood samples, delivering food, delivering cosmetics, e-commerce, even, for example, artificial insemination of swine farms, etc. We get ourselves involved. Whatever makes sense to transport for more efficiency, safety, more economical ways to do it, we are involved.
Are you from Brazil? Is that the reason why the company is based there? Or did you come to Brazil because of the opportunity that you saw?
I think a little bit of both. I am from Brazil originally. I was born in Brazil, grew up here until I was 17, and my co-founder as well. But both of us actually moved to the U.S. We're educated. I spent 25 years in the U.S., did all my formal education in the U.S., had never worked in Brazil before. So it was more because Brazil had, yes, a very vibrant aerospace industry that we knew about it. It happened the fact that we were Brazilians. I've always heard the stories from people don't know about it, but Brazil has one of the first inventors of aircraft, right, in the world, along with the Wright brothers. There's a big dispute here to see who actually flew first. Regardless of that, all of them contributed to what we are today. His name was Santos Dumont. We followed the footsteps of these great pioneers and also Embraer, right? Brazil has, as I said, a very big aircraft manufacturing here that, it's global. So therefore, we know it's viable. We know it's doable, even though coming from a developing country, that we have all the conditions. And most importantly, it's not as expensive. So the combination of not having enough funds to do this in the U.S. while we're still working for our regular companies was actually what prompted us to look at Brazil as an alternative. Not only that, the U.S. was a little bit more closed, and for obvious reasons in terms of risk of operations in the U.S. to fly drones in the urban areas, right? BVLOS. So we believe that we did the best thing in terms of arbitration to pick a country that had the history of aviation, that had all the necessary infrastructure with engineers, regulatory, that will allow us to not only build the drones, but also fly it and commercialize them before we move back to the U.S.
How old is the company? When did it start?
Officially, we've been in 5 years in business. Unofficially, over 8 years that our co-founder, Samuel Salomão, actually started flying drones in the U.S. in Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona, more specifically. Actually, he says it's Scottsdale, but I call it the greater Phoenix area. So that's where we started the company. He started flying, tried to sell the concept to our current company that was doing telemedicine services around the world. At that time, they said, well, maybe it's too early. Let's watch, let's wait. And Samuel was very impatient and decided to drop everything and move back to Brazil. I followed him a year later.
Who are your customers?
We always focus on the path of least resistance, right? We don't have the money to think too big and wait to 10 years until regulatory rules actually allow us to fly to people's homes. We know that this is the objective of many companies in the US. We believe this is going to be doable in a few years, but it may take longer than we expect. Not only because of the technological side, I think that's actually not as concerning. I think it needs time for the public acceptance, for the regulatory acceptance, right, before you can do that. So we decided to do the B2B first. We decided to go to major companies that had major bottlenecks in terms of logistics and start solving the problem. Give me a problem, right? I think the delivering pizza to people's homes was a big deal, to have the vision, and we cherish that, but it's not viable at this particular moment, economically viable, right? We work with food delivery. We have an ongoing food delivery project that is growing incredibly because it's very pragmatic. We actually cut down 90% of what the delivery staff, the motorcycles, the cars have to actually do. So if you leave, for example, from a location of a shopping mall where we have a dark kitchen, many restaurants, the food tech company that receives these orders, like in the US, you have DoorDash, Uber Eats, etc., receive the order, and they use Speedbird services to leave from the top of the shopping mall to get to a distribution area where the delivery person only needs to do the 10% and deliver to somebody's home. So we created hubs around the city so you can actually cut down the delivery time, cut down accidents, because here in Brazil, deliveries actually create, especially because they're done via motorcycles. We have 2.5 million handicapped motorcycle drivers in 10 years in Brazil.
So from a food delivery standpoint, you deliver from a hub of restaurants to a hub in another part of the community where a delivery person takes it to the customer's home.
Exactly. And just like an airline, right? Because I understand the pressures of delivering to people's homes is much more convenient. But here in Brazil, we have many aspects like unemployment, right? People were against us because they thought that we were taking jobs. And when we actually said, no, we're going to be optimizing. We're going to making your job safer. Delivery guys, don't worry about it. We'll be integrating with you. And they were puzzled. And now they see the results. No one complains anymore. Yes, gradually, we will replace the motorcycles getting closer to people's homes. But that's going to be a gradual, not an instant replacement. And also allowing people to actually train for different jobs. Actually, most of our operators today never actually flown a drone before or even in an aircraft before. So that's their first experience with an aircraft.
For your B2B clients, how does the whole experience unfold?
We actually designed, for example, with them a plan that has predetermined routes and pre-approved routes with no TAMs, right, of the areas. Or let's say if I'm working with swine farms, artificial insemination, they go from the genetic headquarters where the semen is actually collected to predetermined farms in the radius of 10 kilometers, for example, which is south of like 7 miles, okay, where some of our aircraft can actually reach and come back. Does the delivery, drops the cargo into these predetermined locations, and the aircraft comes back. So we do this clockwork, right? It's like it's very continuous flow of these flights. So therefore, we don't have to waste any energy or time saying, well, we want to deliver here, but there was a crane or somebody put something on the backyard. Since we have not been able to evaluate everybody's backyard, and so we decided that, look, let's put some predetermined landing points, right? Drone ports, as we call it. And then the drone can actually go there and deliver. Now we're working with a few other partnerships for the drone hubs, the containers, where you can actually deposit the box. It goes into a locker, right, automatically. So people can go and pick it up, just like a mailbox, right? So that's a little bit of the first step that we are taking it, is to determine what developments, what areas will be receiving those containers, where those drone ports. We work with, obviously, the companies because they satisfy their clients. So we don't have to worry about the demand because the companies that are hiring us already aggregate the demand, right? Whether you are a pharmacy receiving orders, whether you are the major laboratory, you work with the biggest laboratory today in Brazil, they have 8,000 collection points. So our job is to go from hospital, where they collect the samples, to the laboratory. So it's very simple, very straightforward. Simplicity has its complexities, and we work to make sure that we reduce it to a very simple and reliable operations.
In Brazil, do the regulations allow beyond visual line of sight?
Great question. In Brazil, it's the same, very similar to the FAA and EASA, the European. Drones are not allowed to fly beyond visual line of sight unless they are fully type certified. So we were the first company in the Americas with a type certification to do commercial BVLOS deliveries. Started doing the daylight, and about 8 months ago, we were actually granted another permission to fly BVLOS at night. So we have the first drone, the DLV-1, that is fully type certified 6 months before, I think, Motornet in the US got it, which is a major step as well. Because now we can produce these drones in larger scale. We don't foresee putting hundreds right now in the streets, but it's taking one step at a time. We have 2-3 operations starting every month in different areas of the country.
Where in Brazil are you flying?
We are flying from north to south, not yet in the Amazon region, around the coast, because most of the 26 capitals are around the coast with a few exceptions. And we use the coastline in rivers, mountains, etc., to fly daily, right? Our type certification doesn't allow yet to fly directly over heavily populated areas. Sparsely populated areas, we can. Heavily populated areas, not yet. So we're accumulating hours the last year and a half that we have had the first certification. And now we are starting to apply for the regulatory permissions and authorizations to fly over populated areas. It's just taking steps, right? So we fly daily, we fly hundreds and hours every day. And then we use those hours that we record, we send it to the regulator. The regulator is very interested in seeing the level of risk that we are operating on and what we're doing to mitigate. For example, now we just got the first permission to fly biological samples, which was also prohibited, right? So we started with Class C, which is categorization here, hazmat, which is the least contaminant, materials, etc., blood supplies. Now we are already applying for Class B, which is the middle, widespread blood samples, blood transfusions, etc. So we're taking the steps not only from an aeronautical perspective, but also from a FDA perspective, which I don't think a lot of companies have realized that what the FDA can do. I'm not sure if in the US, in Brazil, we have to have both, right? The FAA, but also some degree of coordination with the Food and Drug Administration authorities because we are transporting medical goods, medical devices, blood, and other things.
Are the missions flown autonomously?
Most of the operations are done automatically. They're autonomous, but they call it automatic because you have to have a person at the site that the drone takes off. We don't have to be at the site the drone lands and delivers, but at the launch site, the regulations still call for a person there, and we use it to put the battery. We have not yet developed a mechanical arm that can replace the battery, or auto charging does not work for drone delivery because it has to be quick. We have to land, we have 30 seconds, 1 minute, change the battery, put the package, is out again flying. So we have to do the battery swap, and we will design something in the coming months, but we believe in partnerships. So we're working with companies that can actually do this for us and ensure that the batteries can be swapped where it makes sense, right? The labor cost in Brazil actually allows us to actually, not replace everything with automation because it makes sense, because it's good to have a human being there. It's a good job. And then if you replace from a machine that in the beginning is going to be too expensive, it will not make commercial sense. So for us, is every place that we work, we consider, what are the costs of operations to make it viable and to make it sustainable. At the end of the day, we don't want just a quick POC. Let's make sure it flies. We know it flies. We know we can deliver. We know we can do things. And every other company in drone delivery, I'm sure will tell you the same thing. The major issue is at what cost. We want to make sure that as we're pragmatic in the way that we build the drones with our own technology, because we want to make sure this is cost effective. And you could deliver food, you could deliver medications, you could deliver to poor areas, deliver to underserved areas. I really appreciate people that can deliver lattes from Starbucks, etc., and other Walmart, Costco. I live in the US enough to know that this is going to be huge, and I think it will be in the next few years. But in Brazil, we're talking a little bit more drastic needs and urgent needs in terms of avoiding that people get killed transporting goods, avoid that certain medical supplies do not arrive on time because of congestion. That's what we are looking at, these specific routes that we can see a significant logistical gain.
What do you see as the biggest challenges with drone delivery today? And how is Speedbird Aero addressing those challenges?
The technology, for once. Anyone that tells you that the drone industry has been actually vetted completely, it's not telling you the truth, right? We are growing, we are evolving from an RC leisure type of equipment. You take a look at the engines that are flown today, take a look at they're good, they're very good. They're very good for the occasional flights, once in a while flights, daily flights even, but not in volume, not with heavy loads, not over the ocean, not with heavy winds. And you can see the MTBF, right? For those that are not engineers, which I'm not an engineer, I learned that, which is mean time between failures of these parts that are widely used in these drones, can be skewed, right? It cannot be reliable. And that's where we're getting to the point that we make them reliable and make them redundant. If you cannot ensure reliability because we don't have enough hours, and aviation is built on reliability, right? And data being shared. So that's why we opened this up, is because this is important. If we know there's one engine failure here and your drone is not optimized to fly with 5 engines in case of ours, we have an extra rotor or even an octa rotor that can fly with 7 or even 6, you have a problem in your hands. That's a fatal flaw, and you can actually crash the drone. And then for that, even you have to have a parachute, which we do. So we have to show all the efforts to mitigate these technical challenges, right? I'll give an example. I read GE took 9 years to deliver and to develop the new engine for the 777. 9 years for one engine, right? We don't have that in the drone industry. I want to know one drone company that has been flying the same drone day in, day out for more than 3 years. Okay. So that's the honest and upfront discussion on that's what we need to do from a technological perspective to show the regulators that can be trusted. So it's a two-way street. Just the fact that it flies and delivers, it doesn't mean that it's reliable through and through, especially if you're going to be increasing the amount of work that these drones are going to be doing. That's what we see it. When we started to scale, we had a few challenges that we had to overcome, change a few suppliers, go back to our suppliers, have this open discussion. How can we improve quality? How can we improve reliability? So that's one. The second is obviously the regulator. They're always a few years behind the technology. And what was actually true 3, 4, 5 years ago is no longer true now. So they can actually take a step forward in the right direction if you work in conjunction. So it's not always a very easy relationship, as you see in the US. I see people that praise the FAA for the remote ID rule. I have people that criticize the FAA. You're never going to be unanimous, but you need to have some form of forums, which the US have developed, also to negotiate and discuss and evolve. That's why we're also part of the Israel National Drone Initiative. We fly in Israel, probably the only foreign company at this moment flying in Israel. There'll be more now. But for 2 years, we've been flying in the state of Israel, breaking records. We're the first company to fly from an active international airport in the south of Israel. We broke the BVLOS, the records, right? So they allow us to fly doing deliveries. But all of this is because we are learning, right? And then collaborating with the respective regulatory agencies to share the experience, along with many other companies that are doing the same. So we can all push the regulatory forces forward. And last but not least is the customer, right? Whether you're serving the end user, you need to have that agreement with the end user that this is not going to be polluting your space over your house, not only visual pollution, but auditory pollution. So we have to be very open about it, where it makes sense to do it, how it makes sense to do it, open discussions with society to see where is actually warranted, right? Where is safe to do it today, tomorrow, and what is the vision of the future. So I think we have to engage the stakeholders. I think these are the major, if I put it in my opinion, these 3 major challenges: technology, regulatory, and obviously the user experience at the end of the day.
How do you see drones fitting into the broader landscape of transportation and logistics?
We always have the discussion. We partner here with Mercedes-Benz for the combination of the cars, right? The combining cars with drones, with different modalities. Now we're working on ship-to-shore projects that can be very efficient for the ships, not to wait for the pilots to get there, pick up documents, drop up stuff. So we're working with some of the ports and some of the operators. We're working in partnerships with operators. So in this case, we'll be assuming just the position of the OEM. In some cases, we will operate. But at the end of the day, we are looking at partnerships with the other modes of transportation. Recently, for you to have an idea, in Brazil, we had a forum that our Global Strategic Partnership Director actually participated with the CEO of Eve, Urban Air Mobility, the autonomous vehicle, right, in the US as well. They're a Brazilian-American company, and the subway of São Paulo, debating how this is going to be done in the future, right? The subway, we have a lot to learn from subway lines, how they are underutilized during sometimes, over-optimized and utilized over sometimes. And they know the heat map of the city, where goods are moving, where people are moving. We should be doing the same with taxi drivers, with trying to see where we can actually fit into the picture and bring the experts in urban air mobility or urban mobility as in general to ensure we're not missing anything big, because nothing is future-proof, but we try to be as future-resistant as possible, right? To start working now on infrastructure. We have a lot of construction companies to see us flying in Brazil and doing deliveries. And the first thing they ask is, how can I put a drone port in my designs, in my construction plan? And I'm at a loss. I said, for what aircraft? For what operation, right? Is it people, cargo, heavy cargo, light cargo? What type of aircraft? I said, the best to do is to keep learning about it, talking to a few companies. So we always look at vertiports, what they're doing. So, but you have to have a vision to what you want to accomplish before you can actually break ground and build anything. And that's what we also discussed with the regulators. There's not a regulation for drone ports yet, right? We have in accordance to our drones, we have to have the clearance of the area and certain safety measures for the area, but that's only related to the Speedbird drones. I cannot say if other companies come to operate with different drones and different aircraft, how these regulations apply to them.
What sort of partnerships have you established to support the company's mission?
We have one that we're very proud of as well that we just released recently, which is the partnership with Highlander UTM, right? They have an amazing technology, a company from Israel, and we are breaking ground in Brazil. We've been doing that in Israel with 2 years with them, and it's working quite well. So Highlander, uncrewed traffic management, it's a massive undertaking that they're doing with the ATM, right? Combining the air traffic management with uncrewed traffic management and ensuring that we have safe skies. And we really support them. We want to be behind them because that will allow us to actually scale without the headaches that we have today. That's one of them. But we have multiple other partnerships that are very important, like Mercedes-Benz. We have the partnerships with our clients because it's still a partnership with Grupo Pardini, which is the largest lab in Brazil, iFood, and a few others. We're launching a new project with AB InBev, which is the brewery company in Rio de Janeiro, which will be delivering beer to areas going from the manufacturing plant. And people ask, well, why they're doing it? No, it's because they want to test it to see what other goods they can carry as well. And yes, beer, because it's very difficult to transport. It's a stuff that is heavy, right? But also the way they do it today, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of hours in traffic, and they want to be closer to the end user. So there are certain things that I believe a lot of the companies are, the partner with Speedbird, they want to test it, they see what this is going. And we have other partners that are very important in terms of technology, like Elsight, that actually helped us with the telecommunications. We have cutting edge technology on communications because we cannot afford to lose communication to the base where the drones are flying. And parachute systems that we're working today that are very good. We have partnerships with ParaZero in Israel as well that takes our drones to the next level, and we've been vetted. And Can Do Drones, which is how operated in Israel, which we tip a hat to them because they were able to actually show Speedbird that our manuals, our training program, we can actually scale this with other people operating other than only the Speedbird operators. So, and they've done a great job in the last 2 years in being the pioneers in Israel for drone delivery and a few other jobs that they do with Can Do Drones and Dronery, which is the two groups there. But anyways, those are a little bit of the ecosystem of partnerships.
How much can your drones carry?
The first model, we can carry up to 3 kilos, about 5 pounds, and fly 4 kilometers round trip. So about 3 miles round trip BVLOS, right? You can go longer if it has one way and then change the battery. But that's the first model that's for quick deliveries, right? We use that for hops and end user deliveries. The second model, another EXA rotor, the DLV2. The DLV1 is what I just spoke about. The DLV2 carries up to 8 kilograms, so much higher, about 13 to 14 pounds. Bigger delivery box, right, in terms of metric cubes that they can actually fit in there. And they can fly actually about 20 miles one way, so 10-mile round trip.
Do you have plans for anything larger down the road?
We do. We decided to stick to the first class of drones below 20 times, obviously, to be more conducive to the authorizations and get the type certification. Because if you say, well, I'm going to fly a 200-pound aircraft, it's going to take a little bit more work on our side to get it certified, right, in terms of hours and resources. And also, it doesn't eliminate some of the things that we were doing with the smaller drones. So we decided to get the first certifications and then Based on that, we already have the designs, and now we're working on starting the prototyping phase of our next generation. We call Class 2 in Brazil, which is up to 150 kilograms.
What's the future look like for Speedbird Aero?
We are very much engaged in the international expansions. Obviously, we don't have the resources to expand everywhere, so we have to be very selective. We started with Israel to get the certification in Israel. Israel is a very advanced state when it comes to regulatory. I think probably the most advanced today. And we did this also to aim as a trampoline to go to the US market, bringing not only significant experience from Brazil and the Brazilian authorities working on a country, because the US and Brazil are very similar. There are only a few countries in the world that have that complexity of civil aviation. I'm not sure if you are aware of it, but US has the number one number of airports in the world. Brazil has number two, right? In terms of aircraft and private fleet, Brazil has number two to the US. So continental countries with vibrant civil aviation and commercial aviation and aircraft manufacturers. So it's probably the only two countries that are most similar. We shared that with the US. So US was the most logic decision for us to expand. It's the biggest market, in a market that is actually evolving. The regulations are becoming more and more clear now. A lot of work being done by the companies that are already in the US that we keep following. And we've been invited to be in the US. Actually, recently, my wife and I moved to the US. So we are now taking the next steps with the company to implement our operations in the US.
What advice would you give to other entrepreneurs?
I think don't follow conventional wisdom. Everybody says, oh, yeah, it will be done, and it's not that easy. Or people will say, no, it cannot be done. And every time I think I have the answer, life is there to prove me that I did not. And I should look farther, and I should, be more patient or impatient, depends. So it's a really a difficult question, but I think the major thing, in my opinion, that I have to keep reminding myself every day is to be resilient. I think to be resilient is the key for any entrepreneur. I read a lot of cases, and if Zuckerberg had sold Facebook at the first offer or at the first pressures, many others, I mean, you name it, Netflix, there's so many cases that comes to mind. So you just have to be resilient and trust yourself, surround yourself with the right people, and stay open to learning more and more every day, because this industry has a lot more to evolve, and it's exciting times, in my opinion.
What's been the most rewarding experience for you personally in building Speedbird Aero?
See people evolve in the company, see people that never flown an aircraft before in their lives jump into an aircraft for the first time. And I'm talking about jumping in an aircraft to operate aircraft remotely on another location. So we have our number one operator today, over 5,000 flight hours, that had never set foot in an airplane or even flown a drone. We hired him from, he was a clerk in a store that sold me a computer when I needed the most, because it was probably the first computer the company has ever acquired. And he did such a good job in terms of his attention to detail. And I said, come and see us. We had a little garage, and he came and he was amazed by it. I said, how can I learn to do this? I said, well, that's the right question. How can I learn? And learn he did. And now we don't look back. He's a director of operations. The new operations, he's always there. So he's mobile. He's actually, at the same time that he's putting flight hours in the drones and flying remotely, he's starting new operations around Brazil and actually very soon internationally. So he will be going around Latin America. So we are interested in developing people. Without the people, you cannot do anything. So we are very humbled, and the best outcome for us, the best result thus far for us is to see that people can deliver and they can learn new things. And we rely on them to do it, to show that this is scalable.
And for my final question, Manuel, what message would you like to leave regarding the future of the drone industry?
I want it to be boring. I want it to be very boring. People get very excited about the drone industry, and I said, it's just another industry. When people jump on an airplane, they are sleeping. They're not afraid. When people look at a helicopter flying over your head, they're not questioning anymore. right? Because they know there are competent people that evaluated the risk profile of that flight and that aircraft. So that's what I envision and I hope for, is a boring future that people can get their goods without risking their lives.
That's it for episode 398 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Manoel Coelho of Speedbird Aero. I want to thank Manuel for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about Speedbird Aero or want to connect with Manuel, check out the webpage at speedbird.aero. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.